Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central, and it is Wednesday, March the 7th, 2018. I almost said the 3rd. Okay, that's wild. And I'm with my posse, BZ Rieger and Lisa Flamino Rush. And we're going to talk about DNA activations. What does it mean when we ask for that? And I know I've been asking for DNA activations and sensing and feeling things changing within my body. And since our last conversation too, I've been being more vocal, out loud. As I showered today, I was thanking my body because my body's been through quite a bit. Most especially over the last, forever, because, you know, how heavy I was and then all the surgeries. I've had over 20. And so, you know, I did a lot of thanking of my body today out loud.
Nice.
And yeah, well, and I also thanked Smarmy today. I wanted to, you know, address my ego. Because again, that, what you said in regards to the fact that I chose that. And quite frankly, it has served me rather well to get me to this point as well. So, so talk to us about, you know, about it, because there are some things that have happened that kind of, like with me, I actually talked to you when I was having some issues with my feet swelling and, you know, having some breathing issues and things like that. And I now recognize that some of that is healing reactions. But I, you know, for myself, I'm not certain what's the difference between those things, or if they're all, I'm imagining they're all sort of connected.
Yeah, well, a simple way to play with that is that you're on Gaia right in this moment of time. So you are getting DNA activations because you haven't jumped off her back. Because, you know, she's getting DNA activations and everything is expanding and so on and so forth. This,
so you don't have to ask, it's just happening.
Right. You get to choose you want to do it consciously or not. But the reason that I was nudged to do this is because oftentimes there's a lot of talk or chatter, or not sure the right way to characterize it, different than, I'm only saying those words, different than a conversation. Because to me, a conversation has some more depth and connectivity to it, and the other is more kind of like drive-by communications, if that makes sense. I'm just using that as a linear place.
Right.
And so there is a lot of talk about, you know, getting DNA activations. There's a whole host of beings out there with various gifts and specialties where they will do DNA activations, and that's perfectly fine. I'm not commenting on anything either way about that. All I'm was nudged is that I have either, you know, watched via comment or an article, or in a more direct experience of knowing way, a lot of people talking about, you know, wanting to have their DNA activated, actively seeking, voicing it, doing things for it. And the nudge was in relationship that oft times people are not, and I use people as opposed to being in this sense, people are not grasping or grokking what it is they're asking for, and that it will change everything.
Ooh.
and that depending on where you already are and how and what you're doing with that to jump in, you may be rudely surprised by what, I mean, it's also fair to say that it's all good, but it oftentimes doesn't feel all good in any way, shape, or form. And like, what the hell happened? Well, hello, you gave voice to, I want to have the, well, so I think, again, one of the ways that it comes back to, it's oftentimes I get the sense that it's held very much in an intellectual exercise way. Oh yeah, I want to have a DNA activation. I want to know more. I want to have my powers, and I want to, and all that's cool. But when you're doing it from up here in an intellectual exercise, rather than fully embodying it, which is what all this is, there is a disconnect in fully understanding what that means. So
when, let's just, if you don't mind, could we play with that for a moment? Because I'm feeling like if it is an intellectual exercise, or if that's the way it's being held at the moment for someone, let's say me, because I sometimes will do that. Without having done some of the internal work, is that what you're referring to? And working on the clearing and the and coming from the heart, is that what?
Yeah, well, and so a very simple way to describe when your DNA activates. So that's more generalized than going for a DNA activation, and we can get to that in a minute. But
okay, gotcha.
So when your DNA activates, it's again, in a simple way, in essence, your DNA is information. So it's knowledge and the whole blueprint of that which you are in its vast entirety.
Yeah.
Source. So it's a, got some scope and breadth and depth to it.
Right.
Okay.
And it's a natural thing to go through, and it's being fast-tracked right this moment because of the moments that we're in. It has been thwarted in the past intentionally by design.
Okay.
It's been tinkered with to keep that thwarting, kind of the safeguards or the for some reason a child safety lock, although in the reverse comes to mind, on the cabinet door or something like that. But where is your DNA? It's in every cell of your body.
Right.
And it has to do with all of the bodies as well, because they're all part of your being. So in other words, your cellular level, okay, so that's physical. We've talked about how when things are in the integration conversations we've had, where you're clearing things out, so stuff has to come out because it's a different vibrational rate than the other things, and they're not a match anymore.
Right.
But it's also your mental body and your emotional body and your electromagnetic body. It's also your environment. So the environment right here, in your shirt, the environment, in the room, house, whatever that is that you live in. It doesn't matter what size it is. It's the environment that you work or play in. It's the environment of your relationship, family, all those kinds of things. So all of that is directly related to you. So when you say, and again, this is oftentimes people do it and they're excited, and that's great, that they'll jump right in, and they've given voice to it. So they've said, I'm ready. Bring it. And that's cool. The trouble, that's not the right way to phrase it. What happens oftentimes is that since people don't understand that, which is why I was nudged to have a conversation about it, if they understand, I'm not saying don't do it. I think it's great. I'm right there. I'm ready. And knowing full well what it means. And if I get, several parts of my life just totally disappeared. From every mentality or level or cellular health, the whole, family parts of, everything. So, so from a linear level, just to use me for an example, you could say, well, yeah, that DNA activation, that's to put a label, really worked for you, huh? Because it's like a wasteland out there, right? And so, yeah, from a linear perspective, in a short glimpse of a moment, yeah, you could say that. But coming all the way from I wouldn't change any other thing except maybe jumping in with 3 or 4 feet at once instead of just 2. But so I oftentimes people do that, and then there is freaking out that goes on, like holy kaboli, what happened, Well, and we talked about it the other night with people saying can't catch a break because things are happening pretty fast already.
Yes.
So all of it is good. From my perspective, all of it is fantastic and amazing, especially for people who have the thought about DNA activations, who want to do it, all that kind of great. I mean, yay, big yays. It's just oftentimes you come around the other side of it, or you watch on the other side of it, and someone will say, well, I'm having this, or, my wife just left, or
yeah. So be prepared for what that means exactly to activate one's DNA.
Right, because
okay.
Well, it feels to me like what's being said here in one way that it could be looked at is that let's use me for an example. I'm not clear on that part of what took place for me. However, I am clear that my life has completely changed in that realm specifically, where a lifelong 28-year partner beat feet. And so now I recognize the fact that for me was a good thing, and probably needed to happen long before it did. However, that's kind of what this is sounding and feeling like, that it's not out of the realm of possibility when DNA activations take place, because would it be fair to say then too, because that's changing the vibrational field around you, and therefore some of the some of the players in the playing field can't handle the vibration
right out of
right.
the playing
field.
field.
So you said it's not out of the realm of possibility, and lovingly I would say it's pretty much almost guaranteed. And in different metaphors, that's not to say that everybody gets divorced or whatever their relationship is, or a job, but yeah, they're big things, because often
big changes.
Yes. Like keep turning directions and they'll keep coming, because it's indicative of is how much of our life, moment to moment, do we settle? And do we stuff down? And do we hold back? So another way to phrase that is, how invested are we in being small, playing small, thinking small, feeling small, doing small?
Wow.
And you're not small, you know. And so on the one hand, I'll just play with it for a minute. So on the one hand, you're thinking, oh, great, I'm going to get a DNA activation. But everything else in my life, I'm saying, I'm small. I'm really small. I like being small. I'm good at being small. And I'm going to get DNA activation. And, you know.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're very incongruent.
Yes. And amazing celebrations for the, you know, actively wanting for the DNA activations. Great. And I wouldn't want this to be a video that would in any way, shape, or form dissuade anybody. In fact, I hope it will be something that really gives you, you know, a comfort level to actively seek that. But again, from a knowing place, from your heart center place, not from an intellectual exercise. Oh, I get a DNA activation. You know, someone was saying, well, I can get these powers, and okay. Well, again, that's just to use that as one example. That's an egoic thing. And it's a separation, more linear frame, even though that may seem at odds because, you know, the powers are more elevated, except that when you're going at it from that thing, you're just trying to carry the stuff that's around in the 3D mentalities way up to 5D. And that doesn't work.
It won't translate up there.
Not only will it not translate it, but it will get sheared off of you as you try to go. So
attached to you is going to hurt as it peels away.
On the DNA activation. So,
well, yeah, you know, well, now I can very clearly, easily see where you know, because of the talk, as you said, about what comes with these DNA activations, like you said, the telepathy, you know, just stepping into really who we are.
Yeah.
And all that from a 3D egoic level. Oh, wow. I'll be able to, you know, I can be Superman finally. And, you know, that sort of thing. And
my life will be perfect. And, you know, I won't have to bother with all this stuff that's dragging around, and except that we're dragging it with us, because if it's dragging around, we, you know, wherever we go, there we are. And since we are creator beings, hello.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying, that's where it's the intellectual exercise rather than the heart-centered stuff.
Right.
So absolutely, you know, be all, do all you can, and in a joyful, you know, dive in, jump in, rainbows and all. I think it's terrific. It's just that oftentimes people don't
see the full picture.
Right.
Well, it is, you know, from my standpoint, I'm really just beginning at this point to get that full picture. So it's not, you know, it's not an easy process. You know, there's, at least it hasn't been for me. For this internal work to really know, or to clearly try to feel into whether you're in your head or in your heart, because we all know I've had a lot of issues there. It is starting to get a little easier to recognize for myself.
And I'm thinking of it this way too. Think about how I'm jumping to your example of the ending of your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
because for several months, that's all you spoke of.
Yep.
Was how wonderful it would be if you could set the two of you free. And yet there was, yes. And yet there was so much
noise.
yes, there was so much pain when you got what you wanted.
No, absolutely.
And you didn't want it for just a passing, fleeting moment.
No, that's
you wanted it solidly for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And yet and still,
you
it
gave
was
voice to it.
extremely painful.
Right.
So maybe just having that awareness
Yeah.
that sometimes even things we really, really want, that the process of achieving that can actually cause a great deal of physical, emotional pain, and in your case, change of everything. Your whole life looks totally different now. But, well, it reminds me of childbirth because I wanted that baby so badly. But in that moment, I wanted nothing more than to change my mind. Okay, I take it back. Never mind. Never mind. I don't want any children ever. It was so worth the struggle, the pain, the agony, the doubting, all of it, because in the end, I had this gorgeous little baby that I wanted so I mean, I tried 18 months to get pregnant. So it wasn't something I took lightly, but yet and still in that moment of the actual birthing the human being out of my body
was great idea, was this?
Yeah, it was not exactly the pleasant hayride I was hoping for.
And you can, you mentioned something, Lisa, about with Sheila and the marriage, and she was giving voice to it and it sounded like in a very creative, expansive, uplifting way.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then it came, and there was that pain. Well, so a lot of that is because of that, on the one hand, you could phrase it as the separation, and I don't mean from the husband and wife in this particular area, but it's on the identity thing. So It's all ego. It's all an ego trip. That's all it is. It's all of that denser, lower frequency vibration. And
I would agree with that. I would absolutely agree with that. Looking back at that, because that's exactly what that, and I mean, that was a 4-month, let's see. Yeah, that was 4 months worth of pain that I went through, and actual wallowing in pain, which was kind of goofy now that I look back at it, as for something that I clearly wanted and clearly created all on my own. I mean, I have said many, many times that I created that entire situation. That was very clear to me the whole time that I was in the pain, that I created it. So yeah, but I didn't see it for being that separation of identity and ego at that point until just now when you said that. That's very interesting. Thank you for that.
And so just because when you were talking about your creation and owning your creation of it, right? And then the kind of the dichotomy of all that pain and stuff, I had pictures of people, flying in their superpower poses and riding off, in light ships and stuff because they want to see their star family. And the thought is, again, you're going to get DNA activations, and so you can do that. Well, yeah, okay, but in order for those things to work, all that is not a match to what you're activating. It's got to go. It's got to go. It's not up for discussion. It's got to go. And so those powers which are within you already. It's just returning the switch back on in the embodiment of it, or having connection, conversation, seeing whatever that is for you with star brothers and sisters again. If there's not a vibrational match, it won't come into your field. That's what this is all about. It simply won't happen. It's too painful for beings that hold a higher, more expansive vibrational match to come either at all or for any length of time or even for a little bit of time with beings that have a lower. And you don't have to be on a starship or a light ship to have that, see that very clearly. You guys have given voice to it.
Oh yeah, you're exactly correct. I mean, I right here.
Shearing is real.
Yes, it's very, very real. I would never have viewed it as that. I would just think that, well, there's I'm having an episode of pain of some sort, until our conversations. And I'm getting a little bit better at choosing my playground, for one thing, and being able to be in it and not of it. Okay, I get it. I didn't really get that until our conversations either.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very real thing, and it's not something that's, for me at least, it wasn't something that was all that natural at first. I had to go through a lot of pain of that sharing and these conversations before I really took on board what that meant.
Mm-hmm. Just make a note on your pad there, number 6.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and the thing with people wanting to see starships or go to starships or those kinds of things, and the DNA activation is a way, sometimes I get the sense too, well, okay, well, this being has this service, and I plunk down, I don't have a lot of money, but I'll scrape together some money and plunk it down because, that's my skin in the game, and I'm going to get the DNA activation, and I can get all these cool powers and this and the other thing, and or maybe there's a free thing, whatever it is, right? And that's great. But again, that's all from up here. It's all coming from up here. Because what people are missing in large measure, okay, whole cloth, that when you have that expansion and programming node, it doesn't just, end once. It's, you're eternal beings, so it's eternal.
In other words, the expansion doesn't stop.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
There's no arrival at expansion.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that I now really truly get when folks say, well, I'm healed. I'm all healed. Everything's good. I figured it all out. And well, because we are eternal and we're expanding, I wouldn't bet on that.
Well, I'll
more to come.
I will throw something in on a characterization of the healing. A healing and the need for healing is a purely third dimensional and fourth dimensional construct. It does not exist in fifth density or fifth dimensional above. It doesn't exist because the predominant frequency vibrational level that one holds in those, there's just simply not a match to it. So from just on the healing word, right?
Sure.
The expansion is very different. Expansion is, you're eternal being and you're always expanding. In fact, what's happening, again, depending on how you hold it, if you're only kind of tunnel focused on one thing. So if everything well, if you look around and noticing that everything, so all, ALL, all caps, underline, red, flashing, couple exclamation points, all is changing, right? Yeah. And all, including planets, star systems, all, okay? So if all, that's just easy. If all is changing and all is expanding and all is making a big up jump, right? Mm-hmm. Then, and if you think, okay, well, there's 12 dimensions, and then there's kind of that void space above that. Well, so the people at the top hit the galactic glass ceiling or something? Wait a minute, wait, I don't get to expand. No, because so again, there's expansion. So whatever that void is, and however you want to label the densities and all that kind of stuff, that expands as well. So that there's always expansion. So it keeps going and going and going and going and going. And when you have, there was something I wanted to say a minute ago about when you're wanting to have the connection, and again with powers or star family or any of those kinds of things, that's fabulous, and it really is fabulous. And that also means making the commitment wholeheartedly, full-throatedly, in every fiber, frequency, layer, thread, filament of your being to do that. Because those things that one may say that they want, this cannot go up with, if we're talking from a linear perspective, a lot of this is, the up thing from there, because they're not a frequency vibrational match.
Right.
Not compatible.
Right. So, yeah, so, I'm just in the last few months, I really have taken in a lot of what it truly means, this frequency vibrational matching or sharing. So there's a lot in that for folks to take in, I think, maybe,
Yeah, and I just remembered the thing that I was grasping for. What I said was okay, but that wasn't what it was. Is when don't run away, don't run away. When you have that expansion, not only does it change everything, on your cellular, molecular, that kind of thing, but also in mentalities, but it's in your, I'm going to use a linear placeholder here because the more apt way to say it is not coming to me, but your mental focus, your thought process is beyond vastly different. It's totally different than it is in this, in the, if you're in the 3D and you want to expand, right, into a higher vibrational predominant frequency. Okay, so the predominant frequency vibration that you hold and carry and shift, all the stuff in the neighborhood around third density, in the neighborhood of all those egoic things, is not the same neighborhood as other expansions. It's not the same neighborhood where the powers, the magical things, live. It's not the same neighborhood where the starships and light ships live or can be seen, or because they're there all the time. It's what neighborhood we are in when we see it. And so the thought of an intellectual exercise rather than the very fiber, the very filament, energetic filament of your being, right? It will get you there. Not that I'm going to have cool powers, because when you're in that place, that higher expanded place, it is completely about your soul. It is completely about being of service. It is completely about being of and being love. So all of those egoic, all of those things that we may sit down and say, well, you know, I want this or that, or, you know, I want this house or this or that. Those, you know, there's anything wrong with it, but I'm just saying that they're different neighborhoods. And that's not the focus at all of the neighborhoods with the predominant frequency vibration that's of a more expanded frequency, so density layer, however you want to hold that language in.
So would that then, something that you said in that regarding the light ships and the star brothers and sisters and that sort of thing being here all the time, I've often thought that is, my terminology would be slightly out of phase, but that's actually a different predominant frequency. Is that?
You just said the same thing twice.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well,
yeah, so like a groove on a record or a radio station where they're all right next to each other, but they're their own
right
frequency
I guess I'm just trying to say in my own words to make sure I really took in what it was you were saying, that when you're referring to a neighborhood, my terminology would be slightly out of phase, or that slightly out of phase may be a different, you know, like I'm holding, I don't know, third density, third 3D, whatever vibratory frequency right now. And in order to experience seeing, why are you laughing?
Me, I didn't say anything.
No, you didn't have to. I saw your face.
This neighborhood isn't in the neighborhood of what you just described. This energetic envelope is not in that neighborhood.
Okay, well,
that's smarmy talking.
Oh. Okay.
Because Smarmy's talking because wait a minute. I'm lost now all of a sudden.
You gave voice to and description of a neighborhood that you were in.
No, I was saying if I'm in I was using it as an example.
Okay, I didn't hear the word if.
Ah, okay. No, I was saying
heard the I am in. And I didn't
if I am in is what I had said, but maybe I didn't say it. So maybe Smarmy is talking. But perhaps no, I don't think I don't really know what.
Okay, all right. Well, my mistake.
I'm in, but I was saying that if one, not me, but if one is in, maybe I'm
not Smarmy, just so we all know.
If one is in the third density or third 3D vibrational field, and let's say
the predominant frequency vibration that they carry is one that's a match to third density, yes?
Right, okay.
Okay.
If that is the case, and their goal maybe is with this DNA activation is to attain powers or see or visit, the star brothers and sisters or whatever, then that would require then the raising of that predominant frequency. It's not going to happen without that.
That's correct.
Okay.
And it would require it all the time.
Right. It's not something that
because that's your new normal. Your new normal. You know, you reach for and work for and play in, which is to me the most important characteristic. You play in the highest predominant frequency vibration that you can, and you're there, and then you reside in it, and you stretch and play here, and you may, you know, you may not reside up a little higher, but you've changed from here, right? Okay, and then you play in here, and now you're residing in here, right? So again, think toroidal, right?
Right.
So you're doing this and residing, and you have those tests that we've talked about.
Right.
And you go back to, you know, well, then you really weren't residing in here. You were kind of holding it together enough, but this drew you to play, you know, you got on the dance floor.
With Smarmy.
Yeah.
Okay. So, oh, good. Well, let's use that as an example, you know, as what just took place with me recently here. So Smarmy comes out to play, and I say, sure, let's dance for a minute. I've then lowered this higher vibrational frequency that I was dancing in.
And residing in large measure.
Okay, even to entertain. But now, in the noticing that Smarmy was there, and the noticing that this is what I was experiencing, because quite frankly, most folks, when having an attack of Smarmy, are just in the smarminess and not even looking at, well, hey, Smarmy's come to visit. So it's not, I feel as though that wasn't a complete, like,
no,
dive.
Absolutely not. In the, I think it was the, I think it was the dancing in the River of Love video. Mm-hmm. Where very quickly at the beginning, maybe 6 to 8 minutes in, Smarmy came spinning by all suave, and you were cha-cha-chaing off with him. And I think it was around the 30-minute-ish mark, or maybe a little less, maybe a little bit less, maybe the 20-minute-ish mark, where you said, why am I out here on the dance floor with Smarmy, right? And then it was, I think the timestamp on that was an hour and a couple of minutes. So it was, you know, so I think the point where you totally dropped Smarmy's hand and said, thank you very much, I enjoyed the dance, and off you go, was maybe around a 30-ish minute mark.
Well, so for those that are joining us that are going, who the fucking hell is Smarmy? just to fill anybody in that might pick this one up without having known who the hell we're talking about. Smarmy is my ego. So, I've named him, I've claimed him, and I've set him free.
Well, and you got that because that's in that video I was referencing. That's where it was a, I don't know why I phrased this. It was a commercial break, and I gave you two choices of the cab driver, or the dance was Smarmy, and you know, said, oh, I want that, right? Anyway, so what I'm saying is, and again, that's another way for tools, or how to, you know, tools for transformation and all that kind of thing, right?
Right.
Ms. Rush can tell you all about that. But that was a beautiful way to, so your neighborhood you were firmly residing in a more expansive neighborhood than you had been. What's today? Wednesday.
Yeah.
So you moved from Friday last, you were in an expansive neighborhood, but you had sleepovers some other times in a less expansive neighborhood.
Yeah.
And then over the weekend, you packed a bunch of bags and you found a little place to squat in a much less expansive neighborhood.
Yep.
And as you came around the dance of that, say by Tuesday morning, rough time frame, you left a lot of things that you had at your other residence in that one expansive area. Just left the stuff. That's good. Someone else can have it. You had what you had packed in the neighborhood that was a much less expensive neighborhood, and you moved again, and now you are residing. You are firmly residing. So if let's say if this was and these are just linear placeholders,
Right.
don't mean anything.
Gotcha.
So on Friday, if this was the neighborhood where you mostly were residing, but had sleepovers, other places, and then you on the weekend, you're not quite at camera range there. You went and moved into this other neighborhood.
Went for a sleepover in the seedy side of the neighborhoods.
And then, but Monday evening, Tuesday morning, right? You moved, and you've been firmly residing. Put down roots. You've grown a vegetable garden, the whole shebang, right? In this neighborhood, using the metaphor for the predominant frequency vibration.
Yes, I would agree with that. To the tune of, I got a message this morning from myself to myself, in the form of song. I can see clearly now. So I would agree with you on that then.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, cool. So I think this is for me anyway. This has been excellent. I never thought about the fact that asking for DNA activations is something that to make sure that that is what you want, and that and understanding or comprehending, not understanding, but comprehending that if you're asking specifically out loud, that it can mean that every single thing can and will change.
Mm-hmm. And you can ask it vis-a-vis some a being who is a facilitator, because a conduit, a facilitator, but you're doing the work, which will become very obvious.
Ask me.
Or you giving voice yourself that, okay, I'm ready, bring it on, for doing that. So it can be various ways in which you can do it.
Okay, so now that brings up a question for me, because I wasn't aware that there were facilitators. So would you mind, what is that all about? Because I'm sure I can't be the only one actually heard that question. Somebody's going to say, huh? What? There are facilitators?
Well, there are different beings who have different different modalities that they have gifts in. Some truly have gifts in, and some just hang a shingle.
I gotcha. Okay, so just what came in for me just then is my own realize it, just like you have said before, you transmit keys and codes. And it's okay. I know that I do too.
Mm-hmm.
I now know that. I am claiming that because I've stood on the precipice of saying no for a while, but no, I'm not going to do that any longer. So I know that I think almost all of us do.
Yes.
For each other. I also think that might be why I've used the puzzle piece analogy. Each one of us, and that means everyone, not just the folks that are going to be hearing this at some point. Every one of us carry keys and codes that will not just those that are in our vibrational field, but might be somebody that you pass in the store, or might be, you know, it is someone that you're speaking to in any kind of capacity. That, because I just think that's what, I know I'm not putting in the proper terminology, but I think I am of the opinion myself that that's what we are all doing. I used to know
Are you
someone.
of the opinion or are you of the knowing?
No, I'm of the knowing. Sorry. It is not an opinion. I am of the knowing. That's what we are doing for each other.
Yes. And what you, a good way to phrase it or hold it, because it's a way to feel into it, is that you're transmitting those, and you transform into the ability to transmit by expanding your frequency, predominant frequency vibration.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, me too.
So you hear people talking about someone, you know, who someone may be asleep. Oh, there was something before. Remind me about that. I want to go back for a minute. There is, for an example. Okay, as far as the shearing force. So, have you ever been someplace where you can look at something, some piece of, we'll say some piece of, well, you could look at, okay, it's kind of controversial to some, but you could look at the Florida event, right? And you can look at it and you can feel into it, and then you could do stuff with your linear mind and all that kind of stuff. And it's so obvious. So there may be one being where it's so obvious that there are incongruencies and some of the things, the way, you know, you had mentioned it, I think before we got on camera, about, you know, these kids practicing where they're all, you know, they've got stage blood on them and all, and nobody thought to think, this is kind of an odd thing to be doing, right? But when you said it, that was like, you know, I mean, I was doing something else while I was listening to you, and my brain thought, and nobody caught that as a weird. But again, so this is a way for people to understand how much that shearing force is. So if you take someone who's awake, let's say, whatever that means, spiritually awake or just from a more truth-seeking awake, right?
Right.
And they look at something and it's obvious. I mean, they can, whatever that something is, it's very clear to them. And they can instantly attract or point to or put the puzzle pieces together. Well, this goes here and this goes here and this fits here, and look at this here. And I have a thought, oh, I'm going to research this, and look, there it is, right? And it's very obvious. And someone else who's asleep, at least in that particular focus, whatever this other being's, you know, was awake to,
right,
and look at it and go, what are you talking about? That's just a duck, and it's a pond, and you know, there's not a hidden city under the pond, you know, whatever it is, right?
Right.
And so if you're wake in this example, and you're looking at the sleep in this example, it's tiring to be around them. It's playing in their neighborhood is wearing. It's cheering. It's frustrating. Okay, so when we're talking about DNA activations and wanting, powers, and I go to star family and those kinds of things, the neighborhoods that you're claiming to want to play in, although many are not realizing that they're actually neighborhoods and there's a distinct difference in them, just because it's physically, emotionally, vibrationally, every way very difficult to on both levels, to come down to this neighborhood or to go up to that neighborhood if you're not acclimated and actually have the frequency bandwidth ability to come up there, or that you have shields to lower down here. Does that make sense so far?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm using that as an example because this one that I just painted, that has nothing to do with DNA activation, is very, people say, yeah, just, except as you expand, there's the love, so there isn't the pissed offness, that just isn't there. But there's just the also knowing that they will not step out of love, so they will not play there, if at all, or for very short periods of time. But I wanted to point this one out because that's a really good, easy way for people to grok just how much shearing force is there in that example. And, they're both on 3D right here. And it's dramatic.
Right.
It is.
It is. Well, that's a very good, a very, very good illustration there that you offered. Because there's a lot of us, a lot of folks who are in that, why can't they just wake up? Why? Well, I think that's a very good illustration as to partly why. It's I think that goes along for me in this moment of my comprehension of really what cognitive dissonance is. It's actually, it's painful to start stepping out of that. Well,
So one thing, as you said, that why can't they, I'm just writing it down here, why can't they just wake up? Okay, so we're going to play with these. I'm hoping it makes sense, but this has come to me to say. So remember we had the other beings who are doing the DNA activations, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so if you say, that's cool. What is it that you are wanting to achieve? What is it that I get I get powers. I get, all these, okay. And I get to play with the star family. Okay. And so you could keep asking that same question. Well, what is it, and oftentimes there's what it reveals is that you can see the egoic base in there, because then, I'll be better, or it'd be cool because I can show so-and-so, or, you know what I mean? So that's it. Okay. So then back on the, why can't they just wake up? Okay. So because remember, they're in, to use linear terms on it, they're in the false construct, deeply enmeshed in. Right. But they're not in a vacuum. It's not going on in a vacuum. And they are not, their soul isn't out there flying around someplace without a connection to them, because the vehicle that they're in would not be able to animate if that was the case.
Right.
So just as kind of the cool stuff or the prize in the box, I don't know why that metaphor is coming in, for the DNA activation for the powers and the starships, right?
Right.
In the ones, why can't they just wake up?
Mm-hmm.
Because on many levels, they know there's that transition zone they've got to walk across where there's not the purported status or cell phones or social media or fitting in or whatever, that is.
Right.
And, more than most, like pretty much all, I think is fair to say, are absolutely miserable, although they're doing the best that they absolutely can to give the front that they're not. Because, hey, I got the coolest cell phone, and I got this, and I got that, and I got X money, and I got X this, and I can do X, Y, Z, which are the powers in the construct.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's part of that, it's kind of, I guess maybe one way to phrase it is they're kind of reversed of each other. So one's wanting to do the DNA activations, because that's the focus that we're talking about,
Yep.
from an intellectual exercise, because they, get the powers and this and that and the other thing. And this other one's, why won't they? So if someone says, well, why won't you just wake up? Well, because I want, the cool powers and the light ship that's in this neighborhood, because I don't trust myself, is really what they're saying, although they phrase it that way at all. Or because I don't want to be a damn crazy woman like that chick on that video I saw, right? But yet they're not doing this in isolation, so they already you could say they already don't have any of what they purportedly say they want or think they have, because it's all an illusion anyways.
Right.
And from a strictly linear perspective, it's an illusion as well, because there's nothing in the bank account. There's no, they just, so when you've got illusion upon illusion upon illusion, and you keep smacking literally and figuratively into the illusions, that's where that comes from.
Right. Wow. Well, something came in for me during your saying that right there, and it kind of left again. So unfortunately, I'll probably remember it if I ever do get the chance to go back and listen to the video, I'll write it down. Oh no, I remember. So when you were offering the illustration of those that, are in the construct, firmly in the construct, and, have all the cell phones and that sort of thing. And that's what they kind of would rather have at this point,
And by the way, when I say so, I'm just using that as kind of a placeholder.
Right. No, I get that. I get that. But as an observation of my own, it would seem to me like, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but a lot of the more expansive beings that I've come into contact with would rather not have cell phones, would rather not have, a lot of the trappings of this construct. And so, I mean, that's just really an observation.
The only reason I have mine is for my job. Other than that, I'd be happy to never pick one up again. Because and this is kind of an aside note, but on the whole cell phone thing, the way they're held with such gravitas, and that people are drawn to them, and they get the newest upgrade and this, that, and the other thing, is by design.
Yeah.
Because they are circuit interrupters of your powers. your abilities, your true connectivity to others. So a good example, well, I was just going to say one example where you can see kind of on the natural eye tech abilities in the movie Lucy, and she's in one of the first chase scenes, and she's making a phone call, and you can see the streams. You're seeing what she's seeing from her eye tech. It has nothing to do with an iPhone, but it's on people on their iPhones, and she's picking out the signature vibration of a certain being that she wants to find, and she can do that. So
Right.
that's a good movie for on a lot of levels to see, your eye tech, but and it's how they actually read. If we're going to go linear about us and them, they can read and track and monitor everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have magic of a very dark sort that is part of the structure of the control mechanism of the planet.
Right.
So, and people could say, well, I thought she was talking bullshit up until now, but that's okay, fine, cool. I'm not selling anything, so that's fine. But it is so, nonetheless. Go do some research, and it's very simple. You don't have to dig very far at all to find that. But so that's where we are, and that's why do you think that it's cool and the norm, and push this, get your child, your like toddler, give them toys of a cell phone so they get their cell phone, and then for their safety, because we can really push the fear thing, get them a phone, right? No. If you were concerned about the safety, you would never get them a cell phone, ever.
No, I'm
right. But the
total
reason
agreement
is because it locks them into that. It locks them into a behavior mechanism. It locks them into a mentalities mechanism. And those, are subtle compared to the actual electromagnetic frequency that messes with their natural frequency vibrations and the registers of those vibrations that they can move in and swim in, because we're beings and we're energy beings. And just like a dolphin would play, and you ever watched a dolphin in the wake of a boat, and they have a whole pot of them, and they'll come and they'll swim and they'll jump on the waves, and they leap across, and the captain will make the boat go a little faster, especially if they're doing a tour or something, and the dolphins watch, and they'll navigate, and then they'll leap, because they like it. They're playing in the streams. All that water has vibration as it's moving, and then the displacement of the boat does that. So those cell phones, just as one example, there's many, but that's just one example, is doing that. So instead of being energy beings that are in a physical body, which is what we are, and playing and swimming in those frequencies, and then navigating and sensing and using it to feel our way through things, especially with all the changes that are happening right now, with all of the energy frequency changes that are coming, you could say, at us, but actually it's really from within us out. So we're
broadcasting the changes.
That's right. So it comes through from in us external. So we're getting bathed all the way around. So you could say this way or this way, make your hand signals if
we're swimming in it.
You got it right. And so we can be natural beings swimming in all of these things. And this
right now, you have said before, and I totally felt that that's all true, that these handy dandy devices actually carry suppression of a mechanism for suppression of these abilities. And so
people are having DNA activations, and they're texting on their phone to tell people that's what I'm saying. There's an interrupt, from an intellectual exercise rather than I really want to make it clear, I'm not in any way discouraging anybody from either going to someone who can facilitate a DNA activation, doing some kind of practice or something that would do that, or calling, giving voices. I think all of that is amazing. And, I would love to see everybody do that. I'm just saying it would be much more happy making for you if you came from a wholehearted approach to it rather than an intellectual exercise.
Well, and quite frankly, it feels
it's going to be very different.
Right. And quite frankly, it would feel to me, especially in light of all of this, a bit disingenuous if we know that that is a possibility and not say something. In other words, I didn't know.
Right. I've watched it happen all over, and I can think of probably, without thinking about it much, 30 very acute examples of with 30 different beings. And, the first couple was kind of a head scratcher, and didn't you go do that? Yeah. Okay. So what am I missing? Because there was, and then I realized the pattern that there was that disconnect of the, of being an intellectual exercise rather than truly tuning in and understanding, what that actually means.
Right.
Which is all amazingly, terrifically good. But since we are talking about vibration, and we are talking about your predominant frequency vibration, and we are talking about the neighborhoods and what's in them, and when you move from one to the other, you got to leave the baggage in all of its forms, levels, layers behind.
Right. Whether
that's, a wife, a husband, this or that, or job, a family, this part that could be labeled as a sickness, perceived as a sickness, perceived as a shattered leg, perceived as whatever it is, but
right.
Because that's actually yay, because within all of those things it really is all a good thing. But if and even if you are prepared for it, even if you do have the mindset where you're of that, you can still go, yeah, this is a really good thing. Yay. Okay. You know what I mean? If you aren't holding that.
Right.
I think it reminds me of, and anyone who is as a conduit or facilitator of that should be one of the first things that comes out of their mouth, or if it's written or videoed or whatever it is. I remember years ago, I was recommended to go to someone. This person was, I spoke to them it was a long time ago, so there wasn't video like it is now. So on the phone, and there was also written stuff, and so I had a good connection. But anyways, they were doing, I don't remember exactly the process, but in essence, what we now would look at today, he was doing DNA activations.
Okay.
And it was about lots of layers of clearing. It had to do with Akash, had to do with all sorts of different things. Mm-hmm. And I got in contact, and I said, I first of all, to me, one of the hangups was the money, because it didn't have a lot. And he said, well, that's why I do it all on donations. So I said, great, well, I'll do the best I can in each stage you do. And he said, I need to tell you that when you do this, we talked about what I wanted to do and why I wanted to clear and why I wanted to move forward, and because I knew this was what I was, anyways, the whole thing. And the reason I'm recounting this is he said, okay, well, as you do this and as you move up the way that he had his training and his training was not all linear based. It was far from it, right? So, as you went through these different transitions and layers, we'll just call them, for lack of a better term, it will change things. And I said, yeah. And then, and then he'd give me things to do, and we would talk about things, and then I would go off, and I would come back, and we'd have a check-in, and he'd raise the energy field, and he'd go, wow, because, again, on linear, if there was, I think there's 20 something. So if I'd started at 1 and came back, and because I was absolutely committed, and I had already blown through, 12, let's say, this is an example. And he'd say, how are you feeling? I said, pretty good, and he said, stuff changing? I said, oh yeah. And he cautioned again. The reason I'm saying this is because he cautioned again. And I said, I understand. I said, and if I didn't understand completely, wholly before, and I was just understanding up here, I got it. I can see it. The yard is littered. And I said, I want to go all the way. And that's when he realized that and so he said, again, one last time, he said, this will change everything. So I just want you to be clear that what you're saying you want to do and things have resolved. And I started to rattle off some things. And he said, okay, you understand, So, and it was more of a conversation that you might have. He was a reverend and other things that he did as well, but that you might have if you went to a Tibetan monk and they said, okay, great, well, if you're going to do this, you're going to be the air.
Right.
Kind of a thing. But I appreciated it back then, and I said, well, I understand that. And even if it's hard, or it means this, or it looks like this, or it's totally unexpected and it's even worse or better or whatever, come from a difficulty or uncomfortableness thing.
Right.
I said, that's it. I know this is what I'm supposed to do, and I'm not looking forward to all that stuff, but I'm good. I really am good, and this is what I'm supposed to do. And so he said, okay, and in that particular area, a whole bunch of stuff blew up, and then I just kept dancing along my merry way through life.
So on some level, you were ready to give up all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
the point of that long story is that it would, if you're going for DNA activation and you're that's either for yourself or out, with just yourself, giving voice to outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to say, if this is a good way to kind of help you remember that, but I would hope that people who are conduits for that would give that, alerting that everything will change.
Well, now I have another question too, because this brings for me, okay, so I've been, asking out loud, and well, not so much out loud until just recently, but in regards to DNA activations, actually sleep with something that I feel may help with that. But the energetics that are flooding into the planet are going to be changing that for all of us at some point, will they not? That's what I thought. And so whether...
Yeah, I think some phrases have been short, sharp shock.
Okay. So that's kind of why I wanted to go there too, is that it's not necessarily something that, let's say, because of the things that the energetics that are coming into the planet and all of what, in our video in regards to the quantum shower, there will be things happening on the planet shortly that will, whether folks are, ready on any sort of level or not, or what they think anyway in this moment of now, that things are going to change. As if they've made a choice, even on some level that they might not be aware of, in their, my terminology is right up here in their face kind of a way, but somewhere else, their other portion of them has made that choice. This DNA activation, it's not, in other words, it's not something we have to seek out. It's coming anyway, isn't it?
Right. Although seeking it out means that you actually are opening to it, and you're going through various parts within you to connect with that. So
Right.
doing that prior to the quantum shower thing and the event horizons, that we all spoke about, that'd be a good thing beforehand, because then you've got a better surfboard to surf.
You've began your prep work.
Well,
man.
To use that. So
yeah, I had a little video for myself just in play in my head of the difference between actively seeking and opening up to something that's coming, rather than, and I don't know why this image presented itself, but trying to open up a toddler's mouth to get medicine in. It's not, it's a much easier, gentler process, it would seem, to me anyway, to be seeking it and preparing oneself for it, rather than to have it shoved down your throat, so to speak.
Yeah, and one thing that you can be preparing for it, or more prepared for it, use it as a linear placeholder, and without ever having heard about the coming shifts and changes, without knowing anything about 5D, without even knowing that the truth of who you are, even a rudimentary idea of the truth of who you are. If you have, if I use the linear languaging of a good person, open heart, a gregarious, connected, seeking being that doesn't know how the world really functions, from banking, that kind of level. On many ways to phrase that, in many levels, you have been on this ride and flow and playing with those energies your whole life. You just haven't been doing it from a certain vantage point or perspective yet, because we're all energy, yet inside that has been occurring on many levels. Does that make sense?
Yes. Well, I think, let me see if I can repeat what I think, because that made me think of it could be someone much older than me that has never been exposed to any kind of geopolitical conspiracy, the banking, like you said, but has always pretty much lived in their heart. There's still a choice that may have been made on a level that isn't readily apparent.
Yeah, because they're connected to their source.
Right.
And they're connected to their soul.
And the same thing would hold true for, let's say,
And they have meetings
children.
at night when they're supposedly dreaming.
Right.
Yes.
Same would actually go for, children.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so to be, which actually is very comforting for me personally.
Yes. I agree.
Well, the kind of the linear irony of that is often people are thinking, oh, well, my children. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
the children are going to be on surfboards going, whoa, hey, Mom!
Finally!
I got you. I'll hold your hand, so it's
Right.
not, you know what I mean?
Just like they were born knowing how to set the clock on the VCR, they're born knowing how to surf the waves. They'll be teaching us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this one was a lot deeper than I thought it was going to be, y'all.
They always are.
I know. Well, yes, that's true. So, is there anything else that either one of you would like to add to this, or?
Yeah, there was one thing, but it popped out of my head, so hopefully it'll come back quick. But
okay.
It was just around. Well, it was had something to do along with, you don't have to have read the right book or watched the right video or gone to the right seminar or whatever to get this. Nope, it's not going to come. So it'll come around some other time.
Well, the one thing that I want to say before we go is that because there was a lot of stress in my life until just recently, being concerned about loved ones and whether or not they were going to make it in this. And to be honest, I have really come to a place of that every single being is source. The same for me, I really comprehend that now. Every single being is also source, and therefore the choice is theirs and has more than likely already been made, whether they are consciously, what I mean whenever I do this right here is, for me, if it's in the forefront of their mind or not, the choice has really more than likely already been made. And just because they don't act like they've made the right choice that you want them to make does not mean that that's not been made. And it is their choice.
Yeah.
And
I just remember the thing which goes right along with that I wanted to say, and that is that, a lot of people reference that there's, why aren't these people waking up? You said it earlier. And my sense and my knowing is, as I've tuned more into that sense and just noticed, that a very large majority of people are awake, but they're not quite sure how to flow with that, whether it has to do with constraints from a job or constraints from a family or constraints, as we talked about. Remember, someone wants a DNA activation because I get the powers and all that kind of stuff, and I want this. And a lot of it is too, the image that comes to mind is you think about some of these TV shows or movies where, something's happened and the whole world has changed, and you kind of have to because the old parashucker is coming to hunt us, and so we have to just pretend at least to go along and get along, because if someone comes up and says, oh, hey, it's all light and love and all this kind of stuff, and you open up to that, but you're not good at reading energies. I mean, you may have, the enemy, quote unquote, may have put their arm around you, right? And so, again, my senses and my knowing now is that a very large amount of people are already awake. They just don't show it in the ways that we might notice or characterize as demonstrable. Yet if you begin to connect with them, whether, I mean, I've done it recently in the last month and a half, I've been playing with it, complete strangers, whether it's in person, you know, on a direct physical in front of me level, or on the phone, or on various different ways. And if in the course of whatever that interaction brought us together in a connection, to go beyond what I normally do of making a genuine connection, and then feeling the entry points from a reflecting, so if the way that they use language or something they may characterize, you'll see it if you actually go to notice it, you'll see it happen if you're just talking to somebody on the phone about some, you know, you're paying a bill or something. And just, you know, they're friendly and they kind of add to their scripted, right? But you'll see there's a flow to the way that their energy flows behind their words. And so I can pull something out and kind of in a light, fluffy, friendly way. Again, could be in person as well. Let ask something or flow the conversation that way. And what I have come to realize with an awful lot of people is that they are very awake, but they don't let on to it in a way that may be, you know, slotted, and but because their feeling of it is there, they just may not know how to give voice to it. So one example that comes to my right today happened. I texted somebody. I was finishing up a discussion that had to do with work, and I texted to somebody and I said, create a fabulous weekend. And their text back was, thank you for the lovely energy of that. This is not the way that, you know, I would characterize this person saying, but that their energy met my energy and played in that thing, and that was the energized, excited response to that just happened to use those particular words. No coincidences.
Right.
So like I said, people are much more awake than, you know, we might perceive them to be. And if we talked about this in it may have been the shower video, I think it was, you know, to start to have more connections where you're actually reaching out, and that's an example of it.
Right.
You're not hawking anything, you know, get your event, none of that. Just simply instead of bye or thanks, you know, whatever you're moved to do. And for me, in this particular case, it was text that, right? And in that exchange was energy, was a whole, I mean, you know, it was palpable to feel their response to what had occurred.
Right.
And that stays with people. That energetic frequency envelope stays with them because it was a marked change. So it's like a not per se that I was the one who had it with them, but what it felt like.
Right. Right. For them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, that's that made me think of actually, and it might be a little off topic, but we had talked about off camera something in regards to that I saw and have posted on my wall, and also in the Friends of Conscious Conversations Central Facebook page. You know, the video itself, of course, is more for folks that are more in the awake zone. Mm-hmm. However, in my relating to you and what I noticed about the video itself was some of the terminology, the all in, as the name of the show, all in caps, all in caps. And the terminology being used within this particular piece about that rehearsal of the drill that took place in Florida, the terminology of the battle within being used. And so what you just said here, what you've related about more folks being awake than we actually think, in that specific instance, when I was sharing that with you, you pointed out to me that that's more like source speaking through this specific, and I turned to Lisa when I saw it. I happened to notice it. They're using all in. I mean, that's something that I've seen and heard in our terminologies that Heather uses quite a bit, that all of us are using the all in all caps, all in, all on. And so that just, I wanted to share that in here because that kind of dovetails into what you were saying there.
Yeah, we're all connected. We're
Right.
all
Yes. And so it's I don't know, I guess.
Let's play with that just for a moment. I know this is a little longer, but anyways, sorry, we're just going to go with it. So someone, this goes with DNA information. Someone's going, well, why is it taking so long or whatever, okay? And we'll play purely linear for a moment. You want to get your product out there. You want to, your product is an intellectual product, right? So it's like a manual sort of a thing, right? So there's information. It's an information product. And you want to get it to a broad demographic psychographic. And you want to get it out there. And you want to take advantage of, from a marketing standpoint or from a sales standpoint, which would be more appropriate because marketing is just a conversation. But anyways, from a sales standpoint, so you want to get it into different places of high visibility where there's an acute congregation of eyeballs to get the message.
Yeah.
So are you with me so far with
Yes.
the linear thing I just painted?
I got it.
And you are the master communicator and generator of all of these amazing campaigns. Source, right? Then from a linear perspective, what would be a better way to then have it something where there's a lot of acute attention focused on something? And right? So it's perfect. I mean, it's so deliciously perfect. And the being who is doing the show and doing the voiceover as you described it, may or may not be awake. Certainly on a conscious level is not seeming to be because it focuses, because they're trying to sell something else.
Right.
But because we're all flowing together and this is happening, whether we know it or not, whether we like it or not, right? Whether we understand it or not, then from the linear, to carry that linear thread through, that's how those sales and the marketing is carried through those pieces to get the widest coverage, the most eyeballs on it, and the most, pass along response rate to it.
Right.
I did that all in linear, totally linear to show what quantumly is happening.
Well, it certainly sparked something in me as far as looking at a lot of things that have been coming out in the mainstream, whether it be television, movies, that sort of thing. You've over the years, I've heard a lot of folks saying, well, there's a lot of disclosure in that, or there's a lot of, wow, I can't believe that's actually out there because that's got some real truth in it. Just to go back and use an example from my perspective, during that whole interaction, or not interaction, during that whole time of my swimming around in that pain for those months that, you know, that I was, that I've related earlier in this video. I went back and binge watched Once Upon a Time. And I can see very clearly at this moment of now that Source was using quite a bit of that for communication purposes. And whether, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's beautiful too because it's working in concert with the inner changes that are happening. So, you know, when we were saying we're broadcasting it, first it comes from your heart, from your own DNA. I mean, I know it's not happening fast enough for a lot of us, but the DNA is activating. It is changing. Whether you've asked for it or not, it's happening. I've watched it. Heather's referred to it as, when I remember back, you know, when she first was explaining what she had done, everybody wanted to know, well, how are you going to enforce that? And she said, I'm not. It's enforcement. And she used the letter I. And I really had a noodle on that one for a while because I really could not understand or comprehend what she was trying to say there. And then all of a sudden I did, because inside of me were all the changes. And I feel like the external stuff that you guys are talking about are triggers and codes and things. Well, and I keep, you know, as a Jehovah's Witness, this is a big scripture for us about the truth will be told in the end. The truth is coming out. And if there are no one to speak, if no one is willing to speak the words of the truth, then the rocks will scream them. And I feel like we're getting the rocks screaming right now. It's like everywhere I look, I'm getting reinforcement of the enforcement from external sources to validate the changes that are changing inside of me. And I too, BZ, am noticing others changing. Conversations I'm having with people that used to trigger all kinds of resistance, maybe, like right away they want to argue and set me straight. And it seems like things that used to trigger those kind of arguments or an argumentative or get people's dander up, now people are agreeing with me. Oh yeah, that's right. So I can tell that the enforcement is well underway, and it's exciting to watch the message be relayed in everything. Because I was kind of shocked with you with the all in. It's just like, yeah, it's everywhere. It's all on. It's all in. It's everywhere. There is no avoiding it.
Yeah, and you know, you guys give a beautiful illustration because it doesn't matter what product you're selling, what perception, which is what they're selling, what perception you're selling. Because it's a vehicle, it's a flow of energy exchange in an acute situation with a lot of eyeballs, again, all marketing lingo from a linear level. And it's a perfect vehicle to have it flow.
No, exactly. That's the beauty of for me being able to see that in this moment of now. I did not comprehend or see or come anywhere close to getting that. But I do now. And so, and I think that as we go along, a lot more of us will. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that I was the one saying, just exactly what do you mean when you say you know? What does having a knowing mean? And so if I can get it, anybody can. It's kind of the way I feel at this moment. So.
Well, and for DNA activations, there's one last thought, which because this is all related. When remember that example I gave to understand the difference in the shearing force. So, from here to powers and ships and all that kind of stuff, or the person who's supposedly not awake, right?
Yeah.
But when was the last time that you actually had a conversation, a conversation with that particular being or another being, not selling them something, not, trying to, wake them the fuck up something, right? But a connection where, and what is a connection? Where you meet someone together in a dance. And so you partner in that dance together of some of where your energy and focus and perspective is and some with theirs, and how can you come together. So you're doing that toroidal swirling of the different levels and incorporating all your multidimensionality. And so it doesn't have to be, hey, did you see the latest EO? Or, hey, what about that memo? Or, or hey, the event's coming, are you ready? It could be that, but just they are a fellow being on this journey, and they didn't just happen to land on this planet because they fell off of another planet they chose to be here, right? And
at this particular moment of now, by the by.
That's correct. And see another video that we just did, I think, about where you're listening, right? So there is that conversation, there is that message from yourself to yourself, that connection of and asking. Your soul is requesting you to do something. That's part of that's a nudge, that's a mission. They just happen to be in front of you, and instead of blowing them up, well, these damn people aren't awake yet. Okay, well, yeah, that's helpful. Where's the connection? Because there could be, use your term, Sheila, a puzzle piece that they have to gift you with, or you're transmitting to them, but there's a reason. There is a connective node point there. And oftentimes, especially if someone is more awake or seeking DNA activation and working on all of that they were placed right at this moment, space, and time for that. And I can guarantee it wasn't to blow them off as they're still not awake.
Well, I just, in your description there, in that illustration that you're sharing, I can clearly see that in my case, at least, in almost every case of trying to quote unquote red pill someone, that's been smarmy. That has, I can clearly in this moment of now see that was my ego and the need to, I could sit here and try to classify that I was trying to help someone, but they're source every bit as much as I am. So that was definitely ego. And wow.
That's why I like the love pill instead of the red pill.
Well, and so I can see the difference in that tone too, from one to the other. Yeah. Wow, that was a big realization for me just then. Just never know when it's going to come in, man. You just never know. Wow.
And remember what we talked about in the listing of the realization. So there was a big one, right?
Right.
So what are those next steps, flows, dance steps that you play with from that? Yeah, I mean, you don't have to talk about it now, but I'm just saying that that's another reinforcing. You just reinforced for yourself, whether you choose to see it and dance with it.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so
no, I'm just making a note of seeing that for myself, uh and the choosing that I will move forward with. Huh. Cool. Well, thank you both so much. This has really been a cool one.
Mhm.
All right. Well, we'll have links to BZ's blog at the IUV, and also both of Lisa's, the Heart Songs Musings blog, along with Rush Solutions Tools for Transformation, in the body of this video. There'll also be a link to join the Friends of Conscious Conversation Central Facebook page if you feel so led, and would love to hear your comments and questions in the comments section. My email address is also in the body of this video, or it will be. And if you don't want to address a question or a comment there, you can always send it to me. And thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So until next time.
bye-bye.
Bye.